after the interim budget that was announced yesterday. Indian government has very decisively come up with this proposal that there is going to be a substantive cut in the aid that is provided to Maldives by India in the past years. Case in point, in 2023-2024, the aid that was provided by India to Maldives was to the tune of 770 crore rupees. Beg your pardon, 770 crore dollars. In fact, this aid had been doubled from 2022-2023, which was at about 330 crores. It had been increased to 770 crores. Now, in a situation where India finds itself in a bind, there has been a India out Maldives policy led by the Muizu government. There has been a retaliation that has also been witnessed from the Indian side. There have been Indian travelers that have reduced to quite a large number traveling to Maldives. They are skipping Maldives as a tourist destination. They are traveling to other parts of the world. There has in fact been another big development wherein Muizu's core team has landed in Delhi today. Now, this is relating to the demand that had been made by the Muizu government that the Indian military personnel and the Indian military equipment and helicopters and other of these arsenal be removed from the territory of Maldives. The core committee, in fact, was formed by the Muizu government for this very reason. Now, while there are going to be these delegation level talks that are going to be held between India and Maldives and the team that has come in, we take a look at the larger picture and how this is only going to be a situation where a debacle of Maldives is imminent. Let's start my conversation. Joining me on the telecast right now is Ambassador Suresh Goyal. Ambassador Goyal, quickly a question from you about this very substantive stance that has been taken by the government of India, and it is very palpable, very visible that the aid that was being provided by India up until 2023 to 2024 to Maldives, 770 crore rupees, it has been cut. There has been a proposal that has been given. Obviously, a strong retaliation, obvious retaliation. Should this be the diplomacy route that India should take with Maldives? Not audible.
Really speaking, the fact is that Maldives.
Ambassador Goyal, if I could request you to unmute yourself.
But I'm actually unmuted already.
Yeah, please go ahead. Yes, I can hear you.
Therefore, Maldives is strategically important to us. I know that there are two actions taken by the current Maldives government, which do not quite coincide, converge with our own interests, and they actually go, they basically go against the grain of the relationship that we have, that we should have between the two of us. The point really here is that retaliatory measure like cutting off the aid support to Maldives is going to achieve our objectives. I think we should really calculate our actions on the basis of hardcore diplomatic calculations in terms of the impact of those decisions. Now, since I'm not in the Ministry of External Affairs, therefore I would say, if the calculations of the Ministry of External Affairs is that by cutting off the aid, Maldivians or the Maldivian government would actually address the strategic objectives, and by all means. My own personal assessment is that it is not going to do so. It will actually push them further closer to China, and that is not in our interest. So we need to really find out other means which can actually try and see that our concerns and including the strategic objectives as neighbors are fully taken into. And in that sense, I would say that we need to adopt a kind of a approach.
Okay.
Where we have carrot and the stick. They know that what actually we can do, and they should know what they should not do. But this cutting of the aids will certainly, I don't think, my own assessment is not going to achieve our objectives.
Okay. Okay. Joyita, quickly a response from you. Now, again, the popular sentiment, the nationalistic chest thumping that has been done in the past few weeks and months ever since Muizu government came into power, and the action that it has taken against the Indian military personnel's presence on its land has been a retaliation where Indian travelers have stopped themselves from traveling to Maldives. Now, this is another of this strong measure where there is going to be a popular sentiment within the country that is going to be generated. My question is, are we moving in the right direction in dealing with Maldives?
The thing is, you see, whatever we might be doing, whatever be the case, the fact of the matter is that Muizu has decided to be in China's pocket, and he will be in China's pocket at least until the time his government, I mean, if he survives this impeachment and wins the parliamentary election that is coming up, he is going to be in China's pocket. The Maldives is already drowning in debt already. I mean, an economy size of I think around $6 billion. It has a debt just to China of $1.3 billion. So, whatever we do or we do not do, Maldives is in China's pocket under Muizu. Maldives, every action that the Muizu government is taking, Muizu is taking currently, it is anti-India. The thing is, you see, so it is, I don't see any reason why, so basically whether we push it or not, whether we cut off aid or not, he will be increasingly going towards China. We have, so why waste our money on a country like that? And if they have to suffer, you see, ultimately it is a democratically elected government. So, if that democratically elected president has come to power, it has come to power to a large extent on the anti-India sentiment that is there in the island. Okay, that could be for various reasons. All right, it could be the presence of the Islamists over there, as we all know by now that Muizu has been kind of sending the maximum, I mean Maldives has been sending the maximum per capita terrorists to ISIS. So, it is a very radicalized Islamized country. So, you see, they have a deep rooted hatred. Muizu tapped into it, buy India out, that campaign that he carried out. And what was he actually fighting against? There was 77 or 88, either of the two numbers, there was either 77 or 88 Indian military personnel. What exactly were they doing? They were manning Dornier aircraft and for humanitarian purposes. So, it was not really a military presence. Okay. So, these are all excuses. What Muizu has set out to do, he will do it. Because he has got China's backing, it is a different matter. Maldives is going to go belly up. Maldives is literally sinking, and anyway its economy will totally be crashing. It is time for the people of Maldives to decide whether this is the future they want, whether they want to alienate their next door neighbor or not. You see, if I can make a quick point, you see the election, I think 2 weeks back, the Muizu's party lost the mayoral election in Malé, which has I think around 2 lakh population of total of Maldives, 5 lakhs. And the thing is, you see, one of the reasons is that people there are getting now frustrated and fed up with Muizu's behavior towards India, because their tourism business is getting hurt, is taking a hit. As a result of which, if this is the way to teach Maldives people a lesson, we should do it.
Okay, all right. Let's quickly get in Major General Dhruv Katoj as well, and I would like to reflect that incident that has taken place just a week ago, where a Maldivian youth, because he could not be picked from one place that he was staying and traveled to a hospital in Malé, he had to lose his life. Now, that particular piece of news gained a lot of traction within Maldives as well, and there was questions that were being raised of the Maldivian government led by Muizu for allowing this action to take place, simply because those Dornier aircraft that at one point of time were provided by the Indian government, by the Indian military forces for the humanitarian purposes such as this, were not in place. So can we say that there is in fact not an India out sentiment in Maldives, but an anti-Muizu sentiment in Maldives, which is also what was represented by the opposition members of the parliament in the Maldivian parliament just a few days ago.
Thank you, Megha. Megha, I would agree with you when you say that there is now an anti-Muizu sentiment developing within the Maldives. But that is not the whole story. The story ultimately still remains that Muizu won the elections. And when he won the democratic elections, it means that the majority of the Maldivians were with him. Now, what really is, what it appears now is that the opposition has got galvanized, which is why the mayoral elections had a different result. But I do not think it is going to reflect in any change in policies of the present government unless Muizu goes. Now, the drop in tourists, we have come down. India has come down to the 5th place as far as Maldives is concerned in the number of tourists who are coming from 1st to 5th. But that is a private concern. You see, the government cannot force people to go to Maldives, or it's a private decision. But as far as the funding is concerned, while we may say that the funding is, from last year we have reduced the funds from by 22%. But actually, that is not the real story. The real story was that the initial allocation was 400 crores and the revised estimates went to 770. This time, the initial allotment is 600 crores, which is a substantial sum. I feel that this 600 crores, while it has been allotted, it doesn't need to. There's no requirement to give this amount unless we see a change in their behavior. So there has to be a quid pro quo. And if Muizu, if he's so beholden to the Chinese that he cannot change course, either because he's being coerced or otherwise, then the people of Maldives will have to suffer. They have elected him, so the consequences also they need to bear. Megha.
Okay. Patrick, quickly a response from you. And the question I ask is, do you think, the funds that were allocated by India to Maldives last year around were about to the tune of 600 crore rupees. It has been now adjusted to, beg your pardon, it was 770 crore rupees. It has now been adjusted to about 600 crore rupees. Does 170 crore difference really make a difference in Maldivian economy, keeping in mind that China at this point of time is doling out billions of dollars into Maldives by way of infrastructure projects?
Megha, let me give you a background. Number one, the GDP of Maldives is 1/4 the revenue of TCS for 2023. That's small. That's how small Maldives is. Secondly, as a country, India cannot fund anti-Indian activities. So, Indian government does have the right to decide whether they want to curtail funding somewhere or not. I think, cutting down from 770 to 600 crore, it's not a huge decrease or decline, but I think there's a messaging being sent out here. The messaging is this, that if you continue to do what it is, the way it is, it might come down to 300 crore next year also. Let me tell you, these are grants. These are not loans, so far as I can understand. The other important thing is that the Prime Minister also, the Foreign Finance Minister also mentioned yesterday about major infrastructure boost that Lakshadweep would get. So there are two things happening. An infrastructure boost for Lakshadweep, and at the same time, a reduction in, aid and grant for Maldives. So the messaging is clear for the people of Maldives. As a democratic country, you can decide what is good for you. But at the same time, I think India does also have the right to decide what is good for them. Also, we must understand there are a large number of projects that India has been funding in Maldives. Now, if there is no progress in those projects, if the Muizu government has stalled those projects, I'm not privy to that information, but I'm saying if they have not seen any progress in those projects, then there's no reason for India to enhance the allocation. It is as simple as that. Also, it cannot be that we keep on increasing the allocation of grant to Maldives, which then is used by Maldives to repay Chinese loans. So that cannot be allowed either. But I think by ensuring that a 600 crore is being given to a country for a government which won the election with a India out campaign. I think India is also ensuring and making sure that a message is also sent to the people of Maldives that we are not against the people of Maldives per se. It is the government of Maldives which has taken a certain stance. The stand is not that India is against if Maldives decides to have good relation with both China and India. That is not the government of Maldives saying. The Maldives government is actually acting as a proxy on behalf of China, abusing India. That is unacceptable. So I think the government of India's stand is very measured and nuanced. It did not bring it down to zero, but it is sending out a message. If the message is heard, if they're mature enough, then I think things can become better tomorrow. But principally, do not keep on funding anti-India activities beyond the point.
Ambassador Goel, now if we take a look at how India's foreign policy with Sri Lanka has been in the past years, especially when it was under the death trap of the Chinese. There was this growing affection that was being witnessed between the Rajapaksas and Xi Jinping government. And India continued to showcase its support to Sri Lanka nonetheless, versus what is happening in Maldives. Now, comparing these two situations, what do you think should India's next step be in building or stalling or scaling down the diplomatic ties with the Maldives, with the Moizu government?
Comparison with China in this particular case, it is easy for me to say that, look, we continue to be patient with Sri Lanka, and eventually that patience is showing results. See, the point really here is that in a strategic situation as it exists in our region, there is no space for either rejecting or gloating over anything. There is only space for really knowing what is in our interest and acting accordingly. And therefore, in the case of Sri Lanka, our actions, our decisions, they gave good outcome, they gave good results. And again, if it does so happen that we need that there is a change in the behavior of the Sri Lankan government, we may have to reassess and relook at the action that we are taking over there. It is just like saying that the earlier actions we had taken when LTTE was very strong in Sri Lanka did not actually become effective. We actually began to have a more serious problem in our neighborhood. Therefore, rather than saying that taking a tough measure will give us a result, is not necessarily true. It may not. I think it has to be continuously assessed, number one. Number two, coming to Maldives, please do bear in mind the fact that making an allocation for support to Maldives is not a decision to send funds into Maldives. A budgetary allocation, such as one that was made for Maldives, is only an indication of the intent of the government of India interest. After that, whenever the funds are defrayed to Maldives, it's again case-by-case basis taken by the concerned division in the MEA with the approval of the EAM, who may consult sometimes even the cabinet committee on these matters. So therefore, it is not a decision. It is just an indication or intimation of what we would like to do. And therefore, budgetary allocation, I would like to count as the carrot. But not giving the funds after having made the allocation would be the stick you hang on the country. That look, what is fun? But so this is the thing. Number two, the only way we can do is that we can indicate to them that yes, we are prepared to deal with them. You are important to us. But if you continue to be with China against us, there are several other actions which can be taken by India.
Okay.
There are many other actions which can be taken.
Okay, Joyit, also taking a look at India's interests, India's prospects in having to deal with the Chinese naval presence in the Indian Ocean region, and particularly when China sends out its vessels, its naval destroyers and warships and surveillance ships that have now traveled deep into Maldives. there have been a number of instances where we are understanding that Maldives has allowed their entry into the maritime territory of the island, and in fact there is also indications that are being made with regards to how the Chinese are picking up these atolls within the Maldives archipelago and setting up their military bases, setting up their ports. How do we counter this?
Well, I am not certain whether the Chinese have yet started setting up military bases, but yes, they have a presence there in Maldives. And when we are talking about, Sri Lanka, when we are comparing Sri Lanka and Maldives, you see, the whole question is that can you reward bad behavior? Okay, I mean, if you are going to be behaving, not taking into consideration India's security interests, when you are going to let a Chinese spy ship come into the Indian Ocean, get into your water and carry out a hydrographic collection of hydrographic data to ensure that to find out whether what kind of submarine movement will be having over there, an exercise you deny to the Indian. So that is pure and simple bad behavior. Now what did we see in the latest case? That Chinese spy ship, the Sri Lanka did not allow it to berth. It was only after Sri Lanka did not allow it to berth, unlike the last time, what happened, that ship went to Maldives and it is now being allowed to berth over there. So the thing is that, and I think that is also one of the reasons now India is saying that more Indians should be going to Sri Lanka for tourism and not, I mean, with the Maldives part is of course implicit. So the thing is, I think what we are forgetting is that what I mentioned also in the earlier segment, that nothing, and I mean nothing, will prevent Muizu from going inside and burrowing a hole inside China's pocket. Nothing. I mean, whatever we might be doing, this is a fact we have to live with until and unless it is the people of Maldives who decide that this man is proving to be, is having a deleterious impact on Maldives economy. It is because of him, Maldives economy, which is anyway tiny, so it is kind of going to go belly up until and unless it is the people who decide. All that we can do, ensure that Muizu's life becomes difficult. And how will it become difficult? Once the people's life become difficult. I am not a diplomat, I am not going to be diplomatic about it, but that is the only way you teach these people a lesson.
Okay, fair enough. Major General Dhruv Katoj, then a situation when we take a look at it geostrategically, and wherever China is involved, there is also other countries who are belligerent towards China, including United States of America and the rest of Europe, would have questions against the Chinese intention of joining hands with Maldives. Now, do you think there should be more pressure or any sort of communication that should be had from India to the rest of the world, particularly its close allies, to build and put forth this strong message about the reality of China and the deal that has been struck between the Muizu government and Xi Jinping government, and what exactly is the reality of the situation on the ground?
Megha, I think the danger which you are referring to, the way I look at it is that amongst the group of islands which comprise the Maldives, they may actually give one or two of these islands to the Chinese to develop and establish a military base. They may not call it a military base, they may use some other words for it, but ultimately it will have military purposes, or it may have dual purposes, but the purpose will be military eventually. Now, I think the rest of the world is already sensitized to this. As far as the United States is concerned and Europe is concerned, they are sensitized to Chinese actions both in the South China Sea and in the Indian Ocean, which also includes the Maldives. So, for us to do anything additional, I don't think there is a requirement. I think what India needs to do is to put pressure on Maldives. The tourists are not going. That, of course, is one element of the pressure that is being done by private citizens. But the second part of the pressure has to be very certain. One, you've got to support the opposition parties there. And number two, I think we need to cut off all funding.
Okay.
The ambassador very correctly says that, okay, it's a strategic, the location is strategic. Now, does that mean that we bow down to these fellows? The question is, they have to be told we cannot change our neighbors, yes, but we can change their behavior. And I think India is a strong enough country now to compel them to change their behavior. Otherwise, there will be consequences. And the consequences will be so severe that the Morsi government will be out of power. But more importantly, the people of Maldives are going to suffer very badly. Now, if they still go for it, well, the choice is theirs. They're an independent country. They have to choose.
Okay. Patukar, then quickly a response from you. Can there be forces that can be gathered by India, because India being a primary partner in Quad, and can there be resistance that can be shown against the Chinese expansionist tendencies, particularly when it comes to attacking India, or India's safety, security and sovereignty are in peril?
Megha, I think Quad would do what it has to do, but I think Quad would also have its own limitations. I think this is a game of a tug of war, a tit for tat, which will continue. Yes, it is an issue in the Indian Ocean region. China would keep on infringing. But I think there are countermeasures which are being taken by the government of India and its armed forces as well. For example, your surveillance capability have gone up manifold through the PHI Poseidon planes. You are also setting up bases in Seychelles and Mauritius and other places. You have agreements with other countries for using their ports by Indian Navy. You have built up a formidable, tri-service formation in Andaman and Nicobar Islands. And your ability to block and choke Malacca Strait is well known to the Chinese. That's why they don't, escalate any situation in the Ladakh region beyond the point. You have improved your relation with countries like Vietnam and Philippines. You have given them BrahMos missiles and Akash. So I think India is pretty well prepared in a multifaceted way to counter the Chinese. And let me tell you, the Chinese also know that the Indians are also doing quite a few things. That's why the Chinese are also, we must understand, in certain way, let's not presume the Chinese are extremely confident. They know they are the new Moro, It is not like that beyond a point. They also know that they face a challenge from India, and India is pretty well prepared. Of course, you would have issues like Maldives, and with a carrot and stick policy, as both the ambassador and the general mentioned, in certain ways you have to change their behavior. Sri Lanka and Maldives, let me tell you one difference. Sri Lanka did not have a oust India campaign. They never openly, accused and abused in India. They did not do that. So there's a difference between the Maldives, what government has done, and what Sri Lanka has done. But I think it's an evolving game. It will continue. India, as its economy grows, its ability to invest more in defense will increase. And that's why, let me tell you, the Chinese are also alarmed. It's not that the Chinese know everything. Chinese are all confident they can take on everyone. It is not like that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's an important point to highlight. All right, I'm out of time, but I thank all of you for joining me on the telecast and shedding light into what is going to be the impact of this strong move that has been taken by India, and particularly what is the way forward for the Indian diplomats to further realign or decide to scale down its association with the Muizu government.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.